A lot of times we pick friendships and connections that are situational. And when in parenthood, this really happens because I used to call it mommy dating. I would tell my husband, I'm like, I need some mommy friends. I'm going to the park with our kids, and I'm going to go mommy dating and find a mom that's got kids the same age as our kids. And there's a constant looking for a connection of somebody who's in that same time of life. Then you find that connection. And then as you grow and things change, you realize that they were kind of a situational person. Like they were sort of, not everybody. And some of my closest friends who we've raised our kids together, I just want to say they may be listening to this podcast, and not you, just so they know. But there are certain friendships that as our kids grew, I had to make a conscious moment and say, you know what, that was a situational friend. That wasn't a soul-filling friend. And it was a great friend at a great time of my life, but it's not the person that's going to make me feel connected. So I think a lot of women are going through that, and it leaves me with this question to you, which is, how do you know a connection should be an intimate connection? Like, how is somebody worthy of coming into your intimate
and how are they
circle?
Worthy of your vulnerability, as Brené Brown says? I love this question. So the big researchers on this say it firstly, in numbers about 5. So don't let social media fool you that your friends list is 1,000 people, okay? It's 5, and they're characterized normally by the person you can call in an existential crisis, somebody that you would be able to ask for money if you were in a bind, someone who would bring you to the hospital if you were ill and you needed to call them. Now, the problem is 1 in 3 Americans feel they don't have these people. Right? We don't have the stats. Now, we don't have the stats for the rest of the world, but for me, the research geek, I'm approximating America, you're not alone. This is a condition of modernity. This is not just North America, but you think about who's in your life where there's that depth. I'm telling you, it's not many people. So it's not many people.
Yeah. So what do you do if you don't have that? What if you were listening to this and you're like, well, I don't have that.
You start with the gateway to deeper connection, which I call micro connections. Okay. So these are those, this was the mum in the schoolyard where you stood over the fence at sports day and you both watched the kids run together, and she makes a really cool, funny comment. And you're like, you're cool. Or she says, that male teacher over there, don't you think he's pretty fit? Don't you think he's pretty hot? And you just laugh and you begin that. Now, that and it might not be situational, but that is a great place to start. And there's a lot of uninformed stuff on Instagram about small talk and, we don't want, but what we know now, because Gen Z doesn't have small talk skills, which is why they're so lonely, we need this as the vehicle to get deeper. If you can't build rapport, you're going to be really hard pressed to build something deeper. And then what happens is something called social penetration theory. And that is because of that cave person wiring us to connect. If you just put 2 humans who have rapport established, so you like each other, it's not the mum at the playground you don't want to be friends with. It's like you have rapport. You will naturally disclose like a ping pong match, a tennis match. You'll tell a story about your life. She'll be wired to tell a story about her life, and it will naturally go deeper. This is how we are actually wired as humans to build connection. We are not wired to do this all day long to get to, can I tell you my existential crisis and cry down the phone to you? It doesn't. There is some mediation of this, but this is not the destination. This is the way station. And we've got to keep that top of mind.
Right. Okay, I want to talk about the ping pong approach to conversations, because I have said this so many times that if I sit with somebody who doesn't understand a conversation is like playing ping pong. I ask you, I make a comment, you ask me, you make a comment. If I'm with somebody who doesn't get that, and I've used that exact thing before, I'm like, it's like a ping pong game. You're just constantly going, that's to me the richest conversations. But I'm out. I've gone to lunches before, with friends, and for 2 hours, and I have left and realized they didn't ask me one thing about me. And in those moments, I'm like, I'm out, because I want somebody where there is a give and take, where there's this reciprocity, where I'm vulnerable, you're vulnerable. And that is quality connection. And if I'm the only one being vulnerable and you're not being vulnerable, we got a problem, or vice versa. So thank you for saying the ping pong, because I feel like it's like conversation and connection should feel like playing ping pong. And what's scary is
there are so many people today that have, particularly Gen Z, who've never felt that, because everything is mediated by this. And when you have 24 hours to formulate a response, how can you ping pong? You're like, yeah, right? But yes. I would say, I just found out by incredible author David Brooks, who just wrote a book called How to Know People. Do you know that only 1/3 of the population ask questions?
That's crazy. So I trained so many doctors in my office. I think in the 25 years I was in practice, I had like 25 doctors come in that I trained. And the number one thing I would always say is that if you want to make somebody feel good, like when a new patient comes in and you want to create rapport, how you create rapport is you ask them questions about themselves, because everybody likes to talk about themselves.